Let's move into the next topic. We are going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns. Came out today, or I think it was yesterday, that the Suns are now going to begin a search for the head coach. Interim coach Jay Triano is a candidate for that job, and we're going to frame this around their star, Devin Booker. This is a kid that is still very young, looks like an absolute monster of a scorer. They still have a ton of young potential as well. You got Josh Jackson, who they recently drafted, TJ Warren, who they just recently extended, Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris, who were two recent draft picks for them, and also, of course, young gun Tyson Chandler. Looking at this, though, they're going to need a culture in Phoenix. Yep. I felt like they haven't had a culture. Earl Watson was very young. I don't think he was ready for that job. They really haven't had a culture since D'Antoni, where he had an offense, they had a system, they had really something that was their calling card. They had Steve Nash, and he was just dominating and running around. I feel like they need to build the same kind of culture around Devin Booker. But now it's really, how are you going to get the players around that, and how are you going to get the coaches around that? So let's start first with the question of what is more important for the Phoenix Suns. Is it the coach or is it the players around Devin Booker?
It's the coach, because to me that setting a culture starts with the coach, because the players do their own thing, they're a family, but the coach is there to guide them. To me, there is one guy that needs to get this job, and there's one guy that the Suns need to target, and that's David Fizdale. He's the guy that I think can come in, set that culture, work with this young team to make Devin Booker successful in that culture, and then you find the players to match what Fizdale wants to do and the culture that he would set in Phoenix.
David, coach or players?
It's players. I think that this team has gone through a laundry list of underperforming players. And honestly, it's time for them to actually hit on their draft. I know they've gotten screwed by the ping pong balls multiple times. This is a team that definitely needs to hit here in this year's draft, because you have Dev Booker, who is looking like a young Kobe out there sometimes. It's just, you need to get players around him to support him, to build him up. I think a coach in this scenario, I feel like, yes, you could have a young coach, or you could have a coach come in and help guide them, but I don't feel like it's necessary to nail down right now. I think with this young team, you just need someone to keep them all together in a cohesive unit. So I'm valuing the coach less than nailing your pick in the draft and your free agency moves.
I hear that, though, and I just, thinking of what the Suns are, since they had D'Antoni from 03 to 08, you had Terry Porter, who was there for 2 years. You had Gentry, who, since D'Antoni, was the longest guy there. He was 09 to 2013. Lindsey Hunter was just the interim in 2013. Then you had Hornacek for 3 years, Earl Watson for 2 years, and it goes to me where you got to get, when is Phoenix going to get that coach to where it's like, this is our guy? I feel like they get a guy, and it's like, after 2-3 years, all right, see you later, we shouldn't have hired you in the first place.
I think one thing, though, is we look at the NBA right now, and we always talk about a star-driven league. And I don't know if Devin Booker is going to be a superstar. I think he could be a number. Well, he's still young.
Yeah,
I mean, he's still very young.
But he's not like, I'm not, when I say like superstar, like Kyrie, LeBron, he could be the number one on this team and be the one that helps them get to a championship, but he's a star, not a superstar.
He's not a superstar yet. But at some point, I don't know if he can be that star. He's not a star yet. He's still going to have to hit that stride.
Right.
But he still has the ability to do that. The outside shot is there. The scoring ability is there for Devin Booker. And if he's able to get a point guard that can really help him and facilitate him, I think that he could possibly be a star. But also, this is a team that's going to be drafting number one or number two, or they're going to have a top 3 pick. Because now,
to think so.
Yeah, right now,
depending how those balls bounce.
19-54 record. They've lost 10 straight games. They currently have the best odds to win the number 1 overall pick. It's going to be a question of, is the player they pick number 1 overall going to be their star, or is it going to be Devin Booker? And I think that the players are going to be. I think the players are going to be more important, but what's going to be more important is the GM. And looking at Ryan McDonough, he comes from a very impressive line. 37 years old, was under Danny Ainge. He's a young kid. I think that he had a great year back in 2013, 2014, where he was almost named Executive of the Year. Obviously, it's been taking a little bit more of a turn since he's been named the Executive of the Year, but still, looking at it, there's been some trouble with finding the right coach, and I think you make a great point. You got to build that culture around. But I think if you find the right players, you can find the coach that's going to be able to at least work it. And it's just really, can the coach just rein the players in? Because the players are going to do most of the work on the floor out there. They're going to, if you have a good enough point guard, he can be the floor general out there that really runs this offense. I mean, you don't really need that impressive of schemes today in the NBA. Like defensively,
you need
and
to be able to
offensively.
run pick and roll in the NBA today to run an offense. That's about it. That's the base minimum requirement. And what you're saying, kind of, I think back, and I'm going to extreme cases here, so feel free to yell at me about it. But like, look at what Mark Jackson did for the Golden State Warriors. He was there to guide them. He wasn't there to be the head coach for them for the next decade. He was a good, competent head coach. Nothing against him. He got a team to above mediocre, and that's awesome. He got young players. He developed some of them, and then turns around and you hand over the keys to someone who is a game changer. No one knew, what to expect out of the gates, and we see the emergence of what Draymond Green could do really that year. You see this team turn it to a different level, and that's why I think you don't necessarily need to hit out of the ballpark and try to find your guy who's going to be Pop, who's going to be a guy like Spoelstra. The odds on landing one of those coaches is so slim that I think you can, live with, Jay Triano. You can live with a guy like Vogel. You can live with guys, even like a Stackhouse. Like if you go out and get Stackhouse, it's a guy who doesn't take shit. He's not a guy who lets the locker room get out of sorts. I think you can go with one of those guys if you can convince them to come, because there's going to be a lot of openings for head coach this year, I feel.
Yeah.
So I just feel like you
What
could
was
go
it
out,
last year or 2 years ago? We're like,
there was none. There was none
That
coming
weird.
into this season. And then it took, 8 games or whatever. The Suns fired.
They shouldn't hire Frank Vogel.
I'm not saying they should.
That'd
I'm
be
saying
horrible.
you go out and you can get somebody. You don't. I think looking for the holy grail of head coaches is a waste of time. I don't think you're going to be able to land it because it's not a sexy job yet.
Yeah.
Get a guy who can keep people grounded and who can keep the locker room in sorts.
And you know who that is?
Who's that?
Fizdale. Like Fizdale's not the guy that's gonna and I'm not saying this is a bad thing to Fizdale. It's okay if he's not the guy to be your Steve Kerr, but he could be your Mark Jackson in Phoenix.
But does he ruffle
can keep
feathers
them
too
grounded.
much? Like that's the
I'd
thing. It's
say-
like we look at the Grizzlies. There's a reason he got fired. I mean, like
Well, he got fired because the Grizzlies mismanaged that poorly.
Well, that's the question. We don't know all the details,
Yeah.
and him picking a fight with his best player publicly is a problem.
And that's the thing. The thing that's different about the Grizzlies to the Suns is he picked a fight with a veteran player, and veterans are usually like, "Excuse me, who are you talking to? I've put in my dues. You don't talk to me like that." Whereas younger players have more of this like. I kind of feel like younger players you can kind of be more like that with. Especially look at like college kids. I know they're not pros, but look at college kids, how you can treat them differently because it's like, you know what? I haven't earned the respect I haven't been here long enough to earn the respect. So it's like I can't sit there and go, whoa, who are you talking to? Because I've been here for so long and look at what I've done, kind of a thing. That's
Not
the
won a
whole
championship.
situation with that. I feel like Fizdale's the guy for the Suns because he can be that Mark Jackson, work with this young team, and if he is the guy to then transition into them being a playoff team, if he's not and he ends up being Mark Jackson where they fire him and then get their Pop, their Steve Kerr kind of a coach, then go with that. But I feel like the Suns' biggest problem is they get a coach, draft. Okay, now a new guy, and then the
But
new
how
guy
many other
comes in.
coaches?
And it's
How many other
like
teams do the same dance? Like there's literally 6 amazing head coaches in the NBA, and outside of that, I think everybody's fairly replaceable.
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to them, but there are the top tier, the cream of the crop coaches, and then there's guys who get by.
yeah. Well, I mean, how
I'll
many
be
times
honest.
have the Bulls switched their head coach since 2007? 4 times.
27?
Vinny, Scott, and then Tom, and then Fred.
Yeah.
Right?
And who knows about Fred in the next 2 years?
Exactly. Well, I mean, he's been all right. But
I know,
but
that's what I'm
this year.
saying. But that's the thing. Are you in love with him? Do you think he's the next Pop?
And
Do you
that's the
think he's
thing. Like
next-
Thibodeau was a top 10 coach. They got rid of him.
Exactly.
Like, the thing that I
Since
think,
07?
yeah.
So it was
The past 10 years.
07 was
I just need a
Jim
number.
Boylan. Jim Boylan was 2 years. Vinny Del Negro was 2 years. Thibodeau was 5 years, and then Hoiberg's been 4 years.
How was Scott Skiles the coach then?
Scott Skiles
3 to
was
7.
07, like 03 to 07.
Okay.
Boylan
so,
was only there for 1.
Yeah.
was he just the intro?
Yeah. No, the
No,
interim
the interim was Pete Myers.
Yeah.
I don't remember Jim Boylan.
Pete Myers was an interim twice for the Bulls in 03 and in 07.
Anyways.
Cool. That's my
but
point.
the thing though with that is like you look at all these young players though, and even though they're young, like they've had 3 head coaches. Some of them, like T.J. Warren has, Devin Booker has. They've dealt with Hornacek, Earl Watson, and now Jay Triano. So I mean, like, this is something that I understand.
And I think that's bad on the Suns' management.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't bring a guy in Fizdale in because if he treats these players wrong, it's just like, well, you're just another guy that's going to be leaving. Like, you need a guy that I think you need to really be able to cement into a spot. And a guy that might be a little controversial for that spot, and we'll get to players in a bit because they still have the draft picks, and if we're siding on the player side, it's obviously going to be important who they're going to be put around them. But a guy that I want to throw out there that might be a little bit difficult just because of his age and just because of his time away from the NBA, Rick Pitino. This is a guy that, again, has dealing with young kids. This is a guy that has been around the game. He's a guy that's been around, Donovan Mitchell. He's been around so many NBA, stars and NBA players. This guy knows basketball.
I wouldn't. With what's going on, I don't know if I would touch him for what's going on in I don't want to say politics, but what's the word I'm looking for? Basically
the culture,
not the culture, but everything that
Society?
went on with him leaving, like getting fired from Louisville, the drama. I don't know if I'd want to touch that, although it is the NBA.
Again, like the whole thing though is he's saying that it never was, his he never knew about it. And like again, it's controversial. I understand, but again, if we're talking a guy that knows basketball. Rick Pitino is probably the best coach on the market for that, even though he hasn't been in the NBA since Boston.
I'll throw you out this one. This is a long shot, and you only popped it in my head because you said Pitino. Yet again, I was watching PTI earlier today, and they were talking about if Wildcat fans calling for Calipari's head. I don't see him getting fired. I'm not saying that. But let's say he does. If you're the Suns, do you heavily try to get Calipari to come in and be the coach of the Suns to work with that young crowd? Do you maybe try to do the Brad Stevens route and take a guy who is in college and try to make him come over to the NBA because you have a younger roster?
There's no way in hell Calipari gets fired.
No, I know.
But you can go for like maybe Jay Wright.
Yeah,
I mean,
but if he wins the national
I don't think
title
Jay
this
wants
year,
to leave.
That's the thing. No, but if you can convince them to leave, you give them the money, you give them a guaranteed contract.
But is it worth
Tony Bennett?
Again, that's the thing.
Tony Bennett from Virginia.
Okay, but hold on. The thing though is with these guys, like you can make it financially available for them, but like again, they have significant jobs right now. Tony Bennett, even though he was the first coach to lose to a 16 seed, he's still going to be a guy at Virginia. Virginia hasn't been a college basketball powerhouse since Ralph Sampson back in the 80s.
We even talked about him with the Bucks.
Yeah, we did. But
that was more of his Buck tie, though.
But the thing with the Bucks is they were a playoff team. They had Giannis. They are a team that's already going to be good.
And
so all you need to do is make them
now
better.
You have to compete against the Bucks and potentially against the Grizzlies for a head coaching spot.
You need to make them better.
I mean,
that's the thing with those college coaches is you are going with Rick Pitino, a guy that needs work, a guy that has been out of the game, that might not be let back into college basketball. That's the reason why I bring up Pitino. I don't think they're going to go with a college guy. I think they're either going to go with a guy that's already been in the NBA or a guy that's desperate like Pitino. Because Pitino, if he does have to leave, you're already used to getting rid of head coaches. So that's the thing with that is I just think of Pitino as the only outside guy of the NBA just because he's a guy that really has nothing to lose and is trying to fight for his at least namesake. He's trying to fight for his at least what's it called? Character. So that's why I throw out Pitino. I don't think Jay Wright's going to go. I don't think Tony Bennett's going to go. Calipari is not going to get fired. Sean Miller probably won't go, even though he's got the connection to Arizona, especially if they draft Ayton as well. Like I look at it, I think Fizdale is definitely going to be a guy. I think he might be too abrasive though. I think that Patino's going to be a wild card. I don't think it's a for sure thing.
Yeah.
Wild card. You want to throw a college coach, maybe Shaka Smart. Just because
we all
he
like
is young.
Shaka. Yeah.
I don't. Really?
I don't think he's going to the pros.
Yeah, I think he's got a home for at least another 2 years.
He's got a safe job.
Yeah.
And then you look around the NBA. I mean, consistently you're picking from the Spurs tree, and I know Spurs are heavily protecting their boy.
Yeah.
And you look at the Heat. I mean, obviously the Spoelstra tree is a nice tree to pick from. But like even with the Pacers right now, I don't think Nate McMillan is their guy for the rest of the year. But he's done a great job with the Pacers. And if you find a guy that has head coaching experience, a guy that's been in an NBA locker room, just to at least fill the position and get the guys to the right spot, I think that would be probably the smartest move. And I think Fizdale might be too big of a splash because Fizdale is already making a name for himself. I mean, Fizdale is a recognizable coach. on ESPN. He's got the take that for data line. So, like, I think if you're going with a coach, you have to go with something that's either bland and boring, like just getting a new assistant head coach, or you have to get a guy that's going to pretty much be fighting for his life in Rick Pitino, his basketball career. So that's why I throw out those names. And just because we mentioned the players, let's talk a little bit about that. I think Ryan McDonough is more important to this Phoenix Suns team and their direction. They have 3 picks in this NBA draft. If they are the number 1 pick, they have their spot. Is it Deandre Ayton?
I think it
build
needs
around
to be.
Devin Booker.
I think it needs to be. And here's the thing, like, I think that you could easily pair Luka with Dev Book, and I think that would work. I just think that for the Suns team, locking down, having your future big and possibly most dominant center, we've seen in the last couple of years, obviously since Embiid, like, it could be something special. You could have a guy in the same line of like Cat, Embiid. He could be the next big center we see, and giving someone inside who can dominate the boards and who can stretch the floor out as well to pair with Booker would be amazing. I know he does a lot of the heavy lifting as far as primary ball handling because they just picked up Alfred Payton for the rest of this year. We'll see, but I think that he is comfortable with that role, and I think that by giving you a low post option and a guy who can go with a 5 and play, I think that would be a safe bet for them. I think he feels like they can't miss. Like, I know we talk about Luka because he does everything well, nothing amazing being can't miss, but like the body of work for it's just incredible.
Well, and with DeAndre Ayton, he also has the connection. I mean, he's got the Arizona connection as well. And it's something, though, with him, and we brought this up when we were talking about him before. He's from the Phoenix area, went to high school there, obviously went to college there. But one thing with that is he wants to be a forward. He wants to be a forward. So right now, you're going to have to change your team up. You're not sold on Chris. You're not sold on Bender because those guys haven't been great. And you would rather go with a guy that's going to be a first sure in Ayton. But again, I'm a little bit worried about possibly the character issues, not character issues, but at least the ego that might be there with DeAndre Ayton. The need to be a 4 in the NBA, if he could even play the 4 position.
Well, he's playing it right now in college, but that's more of the system. So we'll see what happens in the NBA. I mean, you can't ride Tyson Chandler to death. No. I mean, you need to pair Dev Book with somebody. I think honestly, like, my ideal pick would be a point guard, but we don't have any point guards rated that high in this year's draft.
Or do we? I'm saying if they are
number 1 overall.
No. If they're one,
he said 1.
If they're 1 or 2, it's DeAndre Ayton. But I'm going more of the. Let's say they don't get Luka.
Well,
they don't get DeAndre.
They get their
Ayton.
traditional lottery ball roll down.
If I'm at 3 and I'm the Suns, I think about Trae Young. I think about it because you said you need that point guard. Dev Book can be your main scorer. You can use Trae Young to be the assist guy, and he's got a shot in his own.
Yeah.
If I'm 3, 4, 5, and Trae's there, if I'm the Suns, I think about pulling the trigger on him.
How about this? This is what I think should happen if I'm the Phoenix Suns. You got Devin Booker, who's going to be a dynamic scorer, right? You have the ability, if they get the number 1 overall pick, to take DeAndre Ayton, who can be a down low force. You already have the wings, TJ Warren, Josh Jackson.
Yeah.
You need a point guard. You have the 15th and 16th pick. A guy that I am higher on in being an NBA point guard is Colin Sexton. So trade up and get Colin Sexton.
No, I was saying going with what we said in the mock draft is take those 2 picks, trade for Kemba Walker.
Take the 2 picks, trade up and get Colin Sexton. He's going to be a point guard. And you go get him, and he doesn't need to be a scorer. He's got the passing ability. But one thing, too, is he does his dirty work inside. He's going to be dribbling and penetrating, and I think that's going to work well with Devin Booker. And that's going to be something that I think you could probably exploit. He's going to be more of a natural ball handler. I know Trae Young is a better facilitator, but then again, Colin Sexton has the body and the size, and that's something that I like personally, and I think that might help him be a better facilitator in the NBA because Trae Young's doing this in college against worse competition.
And another situation that plays into it is right now on Tankathon, they've got Colin Sexton actually falling to 15, so they wouldn't have to trade up. But what if?
But let's go on with our thoughts. But what if Tankathon is just a?
But what I'm saying is into that is if Colin Sexton is gone at 15. What if you get like a Shai Gilgeous? I would keep my 2 picks and get either Gilgeous or Colin at 15, then trade up and be like, I'm going to get this guy.
Do you think Colin Sexton's going to be at 15?
No, I don't.
So let's
Thank
not
you.
even talk about that.
But I feel like Shea could, and I would like Shea if I'm at 15.
That's fair, and I wouldn't disagree with that.
Then that way I get 16-2, and I get two guys instead of trading up for Colin Sexton, and then putting all my eggs, well, not all of them, but most of my eggs in the Colin Sexton basket because I'm trading two top 20 picks to try to get one player.
But with that is we look at the teams in front of them. We talked about Charlotte being a landing spot for Colin Sexton because of the whole Kemba Walker thing. But then again, looking at all the teams in front of them, possibly New York will be looking for a point guard. If Trae Young's off the board, then they can totally go Colin Sexton. Los Angeles Clippers have 2 picks. They can go with Colin Sexton. So and even if Colin Sexton's off the board with them, the Clippers can go Shea Gilgeous. So you might need to move up to still get even Shea. So that's one thing with me is if you need a point guard. At some point in your 3 picks, you need a point guard. I would say go Ayton with 1 and then use that 15-16 and trade up and get a guy that you for sure know in either Shea Gilgeous, if you like Shea Gilgeous better than Colin Sexton, and get a point guard that you for sure know is going to if you have a guy that you love at a position you need, go and get him is what I'm saying. So don't worry about getting those 2 players because, hey, you might take a guy in Mitchell Robinson and he just might not pan out. Like that's the thing. It's like you need to go with the for sure players that you love. And if Colin Sexton and Shea Gilgeous are there, but you're afraid of him being taken, take those picks, move up and get them.
Unless you can also sit and go, well, okay, in free agency, what if we try to, because they do have Alfred Payton, what if we try to bring him back? What if we go after an Isaiah Thomas? What if we go after a Rajon Rondo and say, you know what, we don't need, like, if we don't get Shea, we don't have to get Colin, it's not the end of the world because we can get a point guard in free agency, even if it's a Rondo and it's like, hey, you know what, he might be there for like a year.
Rondo ain't signing with no Suns.
No, I know, but I'm just throwing
Rondo's
names out
team.
there.
Like, I think that you could go free agency, and there are a couple names to be mentioning, but I think I'm with Sean at least. If you're at 1, you definitely go for the big. You go with Ayton. But like Colin Sexton would be an awesome pairing for them and Dev Book because you have a guy who is a 2-way guard. You have a guy who can guard the other team's better guard. Give Dev Booker the chance to not be exposed as much on defense. Like we all know he is a heavy offensive usage. Defensively, if you can hide him with a better point guard defensively, do it. Take that chance and absolutely run with it. I don't know if I would necessarily trade up though because having 2 more picks, like this is a team with very bad chance at the lot.
Especially back-to-back, so you're getting guys that are almost the exact same.
Same value, hopefully. But that's the thing is they've missed on a lot of their picks recently. So that comes to the question of, well, how's their scouting potential? Maybe not great. So maybe you do need the volume of picks.
But
and that's the thing, really quick, that goes into it when you don't have a head coach that's there for.
It's the GM is doing.
I know,
the
but
scouting.
like when you don't have a head coach that's there to do it, it's like the GM can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to consult with a guy who's actually coaching the team.
I mean, Ryan McDonough, you don't like the Marquise Chris pick. That's what you're saying. The Chris pick and the Bender
Chris pick, Bender pick, Alex Len, like. You can go through a lot of these picks and question, like, I mean, yes, they did hit on Dev Book. They did hit on TJ Warren. They did hit, like, they've gotten
Josh Jackson.
Yeah, that was the third one. They've gotten a couple of great guys, but at the same time, they've also missed equally. Like, it's the lotto. It's a roll of the dice. I get it, but and Ricky, to your point, like, GMs always consult with head coaches. Come on, think about Chicago. I know we reference Chicago too much, but like, think about Hoiberg and like what his picks had been walking in. Think about Thibodeau being forced into picks that he didn't want. He didn't want these kids on his team. That wasn't his plan. He don't want to play them.
I think you're using a bad example because how much do we complain about Garpax
all the damn time? But think about the Suns GM.
I know.
Are people positive about that?
I'm not saying that McDonough is a great GM though.
But again, he's still young, and like let's look at the picks that he's made. 2013 was his first technically draft, but even then he was hired in March of 2013, then had to come back, turn around in June, and start picking. He takes Alex Len with the 5th pick in 2013 in that draft. Looking at that whole thing, that draft wasn't great. Who was he going to go with? Nerlens? Nerlens hasn't really panned out. Like, Steven Adams is the best next big man in that slot. And even after that, CJ McCollum's the next best pick
He
at
would
5.
have been BPA.
What? Who?
either CJ or Giannis would have been BPA, but no
no
one
one
was
saw
going to take Giannis.
Giannis.
No one
that
was
high.
picking Giannis. Like Alex Len was slotted to go there, so that wasn't like a crazy reach. Then he goes out and gets Bogdan. Bogdan's been great. He just didn't want to play for Phoenix. So like he took Tyler Ennis too. He took Alex Brown, but like that was a very weak draft. He still found Bogdan. Then the next one, he goes out and gets Devin Booker. That's a great pick right there.
Yeah.
Then 2016, he goes and gets Dragonbender, which was again iffy,
Right.
and then he
We'll
goes
see.
and trades up to get Marquise Chris. And he could have had the chance at scale, but even then, like he just tried to get a guy who he thought, potential wise, and Chris would have surpassed Scale and Georgios. Papagiannis isn't even on the fucking team that drafted him. So like there, it's not a huge miss. You took a gamble, it didn't pay off, but it's also not burning you too badly because Scale might not be that great.
No, there are
Marquise
other
Chris is
guys
still
drafted in
young.
between who could have gone. That's all I'm saying.
But even then, finally, Josh Jackson, 4th overall, nice pick.
Yeah, but you look. That's the thing. You look further in that draft and you go, why didn't they go point guard? There's a couple good point guards after that.
Yeah,
That
I mean they
De'Aaron
had
Fox
De'Aaron Fox.
literally went the next. Dennis Smith Jr. literally a couple picks after that. Like, it makes you wonder about that. Now I know.
But then they had Dragic, they had Bledsoe, they had Brandon Knight. Like they
Still had Brandon Knight actually.
Yeah, they had like.
Still.
He's still in his prime.
They
Someone
had
brought it
so
up in the
many-
comment
they have
section. I was
so
like,
many-
I forgot about that.
That's point guard hell.
That Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, like it's point guard hell out there. So like again, he hasn't been great.
They went from
but he's
5 to none.
Still young, and I think that McDonough can make the smart moves. I'm just saying. I'm not saying trade up, but I'm saying if you have a guy that you need, you have a point guard that you like in College Sexton, quit waiting, take him.
Here's one thing I want to throw out, and this was from Lexville123 on our 11 through 20.
Yeah, Alex
he said
Villanueva.
2 picks, Brandon Knight for D'Angelo Russell.
I don't know that Brooklyn lets him go.
No, wait. So it's
2 picks and Brandon Knight for D'Lo.
So the
I don't think that's gonna work. It'd be 15, 16 because they're
Yeah,
not going to
15,
get that one
16,
unless
yeah.
they go future
Unless
first.
they go like one this year, one next
future
year.
first. So,
Yeah.
I don't. But
doesn't
D'Lo,
seem
the
like a
thing is, I
Brooklyn
want a
pick.
facilitator. Like I don't want D'Lo.
Yeah, I was
D'Lo's
gonna
a
say.
combo guard who's going to be scoring. Like I need a facilitator. D'Lo doesn't fit that need. He's a just smaller. Fucking Devin Booker, kind of. So like I don't know. I don't like that. I like the move that you brought up with Kemba Walker. It's just would they do that, and then would they be able to have that take on the salary cap that
Right.
Charlotte desires teams to take on?
Oh, they
Here,
definitely got the
take
they
this
got the
contract.
space.
Take this contract for us.
But like, do you want to take on Nick Batum for 9 years?
I mean, I'm the Suns.
$2 billion.
I'm the Suns. If I'm getting Kemba, sure, bring him on.
But then you have to
But
resign
that's
Kemba
the
again.
thing is,
Yeah.
Do you think you can
I'll
convince
make it
Kemba?
work. I'll make it work.
you have
I'll
to-
make it work to try to flip the contract I don't want to.
You have to re-sign Kemba,
No.
then you have to re-up Devin Booker at
you
some
want-
point, then you
if
have to
you want-
re-up Josh Jackson.
If you want to be a great GM, you got to figure out how to make it work if you're going to do that.
Yeah. We're not GMs, which
This is-
No.
YouTube comments tell
Yeah.
us all the time, but I think we could probably turn around the Suns.
But hey, they're a spot ahead of the Hawks at least. They have that guy. They have that special guy, and they've got a couple other great pieces around him.
Just too bad they're in the wrong conference.
No, it's not even an all conference. It's just the one position you need to have in the NBA is a point guard. Literally, there are so many good point guards
like
in
the
NBA,
quarterback in an
and they
NFL team.
literally have none of them.
Yeah. It's and that's the thing too, and you mentioned it. Like they're in a better spot than all these other teams. Grizzly doesn't have that future star. They have old aging stars.
Yeah.
Atlanta doesn't have a guy that they're tied to. Orlando. Okay.
You just say Orlando has 12 starters.
Like looking at all these teams, Brooklyn doesn't even have their pick. Like all these teams are screwed. Phoenix is in the best place to build. It's just you got to hit on these picks, and that's why I'm saying if you need a point guard, trade up, use that 15-16, use the second rounder, and go and get a Colin Sexton, go and get a Shea Gilgeous. If you love them, go and get them.
Yeah.
That's my mentality. It's like the same thing with the NFL draft. You have a quarterback you love, go up and get them. Don't hesitate because you need that position.
Could you see them if they get stuck at 3-4 going Trae Young?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
As if Luka's not on the board,
Yeah.
I could see them going Trae Young and possibly even Colin Sexton if
I
they
mean,
like Colin Sexton
why
more.
not? Because Trae Young could be that facilitator that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phenomenal passer.
So I don't know. It's something that Phoenix just needs to push ahead. And I think if they get the players, the point guard, it doesn't matter who the coach is. But the one thing that I think you need to do is just make sure that coach is going to be there for more than 3 years, more than 4 years. Just make sure you have a guy that's going to be at least a familiar face that these young kids can look and grow with.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the future guy, but at least a guy that they can at least be and consistently rely on to be there.